Gold Imperial is a brand that caters to women and young girls. We also have a program for children during the holiday, which we have called the Kiddies Sew Hub. In the Kiddies Sew Hub, we have a class where we teach young children how to take the proper body measurement and also how to construct a basic bodice like the one before me here. I have constructed one and also traced out from the pattern. This is my front and this is the back block. Welcome, my name is Priska Osegale. I am the lead instructor at Gold Imperial Academy. Today we'll be taking a look at how to incorporate the Caribbean skirt into a dress for a young girl. So I have before me the basic bodice already drafted. Your children will be learning how to take the proper body measurement and also how to construct a basic bodice for young children like the one I have here. We have constructed one and I have traced out from that for the purpose of this class. I'm going to be using this basic bodice pattern to cut the fabric for the bodice of the dress. So all I'm just going to do is to cut at the waistline, okay, and also add my seam allowance. All right, all this will be taught young learners at the Kiddies Sew Hub. We're going to be using this to cut for the front and the one underneath for the back. So we are using this leftover fabric for the purpose of this class. That's the beauty of making for young children. You can always use your leftover fabric to create something amazing for your young adorables. So I have this scrap of fabric left, okay, from a dress I made for myself, and I'll be using it for the purpose of this class. So I'm going to be placing my pattern on my fabric and then I'm going to be cutting the bodies, both the front and the back of the dress. So I'm going to place my pattern like so and then trace it out onto my fabric. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and trace out. So you can see that I already added my zipper allowance to the back pattern. Okay, so all I'll just do is just to trace everything out. I've also added my seam allowances. I prefer to do that on my pattern. Okay, sometimes you may forget to do that, but it's just better you do so on your pattern so that there's no mistake whatsoever. Here I have traced everything out. I'm going to cut it now and also cut the lining. So this is the back. Okay, I've cut the front already. So this is the back. I'm going to just cut everything out, cut the lining, add fusible interfacing, and then come back to show you. So here we are. This is the front and this is for the back. You can see that we have the zipper allowance. Fusible interfacing have been added to both the fabric and to the lining, and they've been joined to the fabric. So now I'm going to go ahead and prepare the Caribbean, which is where we are really focusing on. I'm going to be making the Caribbean part of the dress as just 2 steps. Okay, so I have this first strip of fabric and I also have the second strip of fabric. There are 2 ways to do this. You can either add your gathering allowance to the waist, okay, or you just go ahead and multiply whatever you want to use by 2 or 3 or by whatever value that you want, depending on the fabric that you have or the fullness that you want to achieve. For this, what I have done is for the first layer, I have used my hip measurement. So I've used the hip measurement of my young client, okay, and then I have added zipper allowance to that and also added a little bit of allowance to allow me gather everything together. Do we understand? I chose a particular value to add to it, so you can do like 10 inches if you don't want it to be too full. You can do like 20 inches. You can multiply your waist measurement by 2. But for this, what I have done is I have used my hip measurement plus my zipper allowance, then added a gather allowance. Okay, so this is for the first layer right here. For the second layer, you can either do the first layer, which is this, multiply by 2 if you have enough fabric and you really want it to be full, or you can just add some form of allowance to it to enable you gather it together, which is what I have done because I do not really have lots of fabric. Remember that I said that this is fabric scraps remaining from the garment I made, okay, that I want to use for this garment. Okay, so if you have enough fabric, what you can do is to multiply the first layer by 2, get the second layer, and if you want a third layer, multiply again by 2 to get the third layer. Okay, that is the third step. Do we understand? The Caribbean skirt is such that it is usually in steps and also graduating. I don't know if you understand what I'm talking about. You see that it's not usually straight, it flares out like an A line. Okay, so by the time you add your allowance as you go, it helps it to flare out. So that is what we want to achieve. So this is the first layer now, and this is the second tier. Okay, so all I'm going to do is to gather all these. Okay, gather this first layer and attach it to the second layer. So you can sew a basting stitch, okay, or a loose stitch, okay, and then gather. Okay, just gather. All right, this is quite small, but just for you to see. So you gather like this, then you gather this one as well, and then attach it to the hem of the first layer. All right, do we understand? Attach it to the hem of the first layer. Because I'm only doing 2 steps, I have divided the skirt part of the dress by 2 to enable me get the length that I need. So you have to measure your dress length. Okay, so if your dress length, for example, is 30 and your half length, for example, is 12, okay, I'm using a child's measurement now. So 30 minus 12, that gives us 18. So you divide that 18, which will be the skirt part of the dress, by 2, which gives me 9 inches. So you measure your 9 inches plus seam allowance. Remember, you join one end back to the waist and the other end to the next tier. Okay, so I'll need 0.5 at this edge and 0.5 at the other end to help me join to the next step or the next tier. Okay, so I'll gather these as well and then join together. So when I'm done joining, I'll come back to show you the next step. Okay, so this is the first layer. Okay, I have sewn a loose stitch all through the length of the fabric. Okay, so this is it. I have gathered it. Okay, so this is it. All right, so the next thing you would do, now when I was cutting, this was what I did. After measuring this, okay, I measured the length of this fabric. Okay, I measured the length of this fabric, which gave me 39.5. So you can do times 2 of this or times 3, depending on the fabric that you have and also how full you want it to be. So if you do not want to do that, another thing you can do is, since this is 39.5, you can add a particular figure to it to give you your gathering allowance. So you can decide that you want to add like 30 to it. Just measure what you have here, add like 30 inches as your allowance for you to be able to gather it back to 39.5. And if you want it to be really full, you can add more than that. So you can add up to like 60 or whatever figure that you choose. So I have measured this, like I said earlier, and I have 39.5. So I have done times 2 of what I have for the first step. This is the first step. All I did was to measure this and then use it to cut. So now I have sewn this, okay? I have sewn a loose stitch on this. All I'm going to do now is to gather it to the figure that I have on this one. So when I'm done gathering, okay, I would sew it to the hem of this first layer. Do we get? So all I'm going to do is just gather. Okay, you know how to gather. That's pretty basic. You can also use your ruffle foot to do that, or you just sew loose stitches on your fabric and then you gather. So I'm going to finish up this and then join it to the first layer. Gathering a fabric is no small job, really. Every designer knows this. Just have to do it slowly and pray that it does not cut. I've had to sew a fabric like more than once because the thread kept cutting, especially when I'm making ball dresses that I have long strips of tulle to sew. Okay, so I've done one end, I'll also do the other one. So you can just get a ruffle foot to make this work easier. All you just need to do is fix it to your machine and then it ruffles for you. Job done, easy. Okay, so for our kiddies, what we have done is to teach them how to do this using the needle and thread, which is also quite simple to do so that they can get it easily, all right, without being afraid that the thread may cut, because not all children will be patient enough to gather this. So I'm gathering this back to the measurement of the first tier. Okay, hooray, it's coming out nicely. All right, so I was just praying that it does not cut, which is usually the case. So as you ruche, you make sure that you measure so that you do not over gather this. Okay, so I'm going to measure this now to be sure that I have the measurement of the first step. Okay, okay, it's smaller than the first step now, so I'm just going to release some of the gathers. I need to have 39.5. Okay, so now it's more than, which is okay. I can always ease the excess into it. But let me just gather a bit more. Okay, so now I'm going to join it to the first step. Alright, so we are done joining the first step to the second step. Okay, so this is it. Okay, can you see the gathering? Okay, so now I'm going to join the lining to this down part. Now, depending on how you finish off your garments, you can either do the fabric to fabric and lining to lining and then couple everything together. But for this, I'm joining the lining separately before I bring everything together. So I have my lining cut already. So this is my lining. Now I have cut my lining as a half circle. So on this, because I want this to ball out a little bit, I'm going to be adding some hard net on this half circle lining that I have cut. Okay, so before I now go ahead and join it to my fabric, if you don't want to, you can leave it. You can cut your lining as half a circle as I have done. Okay, we have a tutorial on how to cut different circles. Just search on the channel, you will see the tutorial on how to calculate your circles and also how to cut different types of circles. Okay, so this is the half circle. You can cut your lining fabric like this, or you can just cut it straight, okay, and then gather it to the width of your first layer, okay, or just cut any width of choice that you know that would not be tight when you attach it to your main fabric, and use that as your lining. But I prefer to cut this as a half circle and then go ahead and attach a little bit of hard net, like probably like 3 steps, okay, or you can even attach all the way if you really want it to ball out well, okay, and attach, and then before I join it to my fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and attach the hard net now before I come back to join to the fabric. All right, and then we'll continue. All right, so I'm done attaching my hard net to the lining fabric. Okay, so you can see how it is. If this were to be a ball dress, we would have it fuller, or just to give some form of volume to our Caribbean dress. That is why we are adding this to the lining fabric. So now I'll be attaching the lining to the bottom of the dress. So this is the front of the dress, okay, so I'm going to place it like so, all right, and then attach and flip inside. You can see that I did not allow my pleating to get to the part that I'll be attaching to the fabric, okay, because this will also serve as my zipper allowance. So now I'm going to go ahead and join. So join like this and then flip and give it a good press. So I'll quickly do that, okay, then couple the bodies of the back to it because it's time for us to add the zipper, and then couple everything together, come back to show it to you. Alright guys, so you can see the Caribbean bottom of the dress. So this is it, this is the final outcome. Okay, so you can add any sleeve of your choice to the dress. Okay, so alright, so this is a dress. We're going to be adding our sleeves to it, okay, and this is the final outcome. We hope you enjoyed making this tutorial with us, and we hope you replicate this and then show us your outcome. Please, when you do, tag us on Instagram, Gold Imperial, or on Facebook, Gold Imperial. Thank you so very much for being with us on today's tutorial. To register your words for the Kiddies Sew Hub, please get in touch with us, bit.ly/Gold Imperial. Type it in your browser and you'll be able to chat directly with us, so your children can be a part of these holidays. So like this video if you found this tutorial useful, subscribe if you are yet to, turn on notifications so that you'll be first to know whenever we post new videos. Share this link with your friends so that we all can learn together. Thank you so very much for being a part of today's tutorial. Till we come your way again, my name is Priska Oserale of Gold Imperial Academy. Bye.